Literally happened last week, speaking, and somebody came up in the audience and said, "Hey, I'm a liberal. I voted for Biden in 2020, but I found your Instagram and I've been watching your videos, and I wanted to come hear you speak because I think you have an interesting perspective. I haven't heard this before. I haven't had another young person talk to me like this. It's always the old people talking down to me." And so that's the rewarding part of, okay, we actually are making a difference and bringing people to our side, which is so incredibly cool. So it's all by the grace and blessing of God.
Hey, Joyful Warriors, Tiffany Justice here with Moms for Liberty, and I am very excited to welcome a special guest today to the Joyful Warrior podcast. Brilyn Hollyhand is an 18-year-old political commentator and strategist who has captured the attention of the nation with his astute observations and exclusive interviews. As founder and editor-in-chief of the Truth Gazette, a conservative news service he established at the age of 11, my goodness, Brilyn, he has proven himself to be a force to be reckoned with in the world of politics. Brilyn is the chair of the Republican National Committee Youth Advisory Council, and he also has a new book out called One Generation Away. And he talks about his battle plan for Gen Z to reclaim America by returning to faith, family, and freedom. Brilyn, welcome to the Joyful Warrior podcast. We're so excited to have you today.
Miss Tiffany, thanks so much for having me. It's so good to see you again. We met a while back at Liberty, and this is such an honor to get to come on and talk to all the incredible moms out there. I'm so excited.
We did. We met at Liberty. You're absolutely right. And we were going to actually give some talks that day. And the campus that we're on the side of the campus where we were supposed to give our talks, all of the power went out, didn't it?
Did.
I felt so bad for all of the wonderful people at Liberty who had worked so hard to put on that event. And we ended up getting to all meet each other a little bit and talk, all of the speakers. So that was a lovely turn of events. And yes, I got to meet you then. And so excited to have you today. As a young political commentator, the founder of the Truth Gazette, what inspired you to get involved in politics at such a young age?
Absolutely. So I first started paying attention to politics at the age of 10. That was the 2016 presidential election between Trump and Hillary. And it was a moment in the country where we thought it couldn't get any more divisive. Little did we know it would continue to get divisive. But we kind of thought that was it. We were like, this is crazy. You have two polar opposites on a debate stage, going at it. And that took a lot of people away from politics. They were turned off. They were disillusioned from politics. It actually brought me in. I said, look, I think as a young person, my generation has a unique opportunity to bring the country together. I think we can unify in some way, shape, or form. And we're still working on that today. But that first sparked my interest. Tiffany, I vividly remember a mock election we had on election day in my fourth grade classroom. And it was such a cool experience. It stuck with me to this day. And now I actually get to vote for real in this election, which is so exciting. So kind of a full circle turn of events there. I remember keeping my fourth grade class in from recess to watch the inauguration on TV. And they were like, why are we doing this? I'm like, it's history. You're going to enjoy it. I was like, they'll read some poems. There'll be some songs. There'll be some entertainment for you. Just pay attention. You'll like it. And that was kind of what brought me into politics. But it wasn't until that July of 2017 that I founded the Truth Gazette because I was fed up. I had sat there for about a year and kept telling myself the adults are going to handle it. The adults will fix it. The country's in a bad position, but don't worry, the adults have it. Tiffany, the adults didn't have it. And so I stepped up and said, if they aren't going to do it, I'm going to. And got involved in politics. And I started with opinion columns. And there was not much else an 11-year-old could do. You can't run for anything except SGA president. You can't necessarily get a contributor gig at Fox, but you can write and you can put your opinion out there, and that's what I did. And it was really cool.
You might be able to get a contributor gig at Fox. I don't know. You're pretty good.
Maybe one day.
Maybe one day, yeah. But I mean, the truth of the matter is that we do need to hear from more young people.
Absolutely.
And right now, in the schools, I mean, you grew up in Alabama, and we'll talk a little bit about your educational experience. But what we're finding in the schools is so often there's only one side of any issue that's being presented to kids in school,
Absolutely,
right?
yeah.
So you have these rising generations of kids who are being pitted against each other, who aren't being taught accurate history. And then, we see what's happening on the college campuses. So, all right, let's go back for a second.
Sure.
You're 11 years old. You found the Truth Gazette. You start writing about what you're seeing and what you're concerned about. Biggest challenge to doing that, and biggest reward? I really would love to know
Sure.
What your takeaways have been.
Yeah, so biggest challenge for sure would be trying to balance it all. That's still the biggest challenge today, trying to have a successful career in politics by, helping others, by informing or, giving my opinion on things. Obviously writing a book and chairing this council, and then also trying to have somewhat of a social life when I am in town and not traveling. And then also trying to spend time with my family. So my birthday was actually this past weekend. I got to be home for like the first weekend in forever and spent some time on the lake and hung out with friends last night and had a great time. And then today we're working. Tomorrow I'm in Nashville for media tour. Like you get back into it, but you do have to understand that balance, having priorities, making sure that you're in church every Sunday, regardless of what state I'm traveling to. I mean, that's definitely the challenge. The reward, I think, would just have to be all the people I get to meet and knowing that hopefully we're making somewhat of a difference. Whether we see that right now or planting seeds that we're going to see later on, is so incredibly cool to get to see, have people come up at a speech. This literally happened last week, speaking, and somebody came up in the audience and said, "Hey, I'm a liberal. I voted for Biden in 2020. But I found your Instagram and I've been watching your videos and I wanted to come hear you speak because I think you have an interesting perspective. I haven't heard this before. I haven't had another young person talk to me like this. It's always the old people talking down to me." And so that's the rewarding part of, okay, we actually are making a difference and bringing people to our side, which is so incredibly cool. So it's all by the grace and blessing of God, but we count our blessings every day. And this because I feel like I'm dreaming. I have not woken up yet, so I'm just going to keep on going. But I pinch myself all the time. I don't know how I got so lucky, but here we are.
So, Brilyn, who have been some of your greatest mentors or influences as you've learned more about politics and America?
Sure. So I definitely have to start with my parents. Every time I get asked that question, I think somebody's expecting a celebrity answer off the bat. But my parents are the ones that gave me, the opportunity to do this, especially at a young age. Obviously at 11, didn't have a driver's license to drive from speech to speech. So they were there for that. They've supported me going all across the country for multiple campus tours and speaking tours. And you met my mom when we were at Liberty together. So just so many opportunities of getting to travel with them and them being here, constantly to support me. So definitely wouldn't take that for granted. I think a lot of times people are like, oh, you grew up in a political family. You grew up in a family where you were kind of groomed into politics. This was what was expected of you. My mom's a school teacher. My dad does construction. So, no political, aspirations or involvement whatsoever. And here we are. So just kind of thrusting them into this world with me was a lot. And I think that I appreciate them kind of, letting me kind of do it.
I feel like we have that in common. So I was not raised in a family that was particularly political. My parents always voted, right? But they weren't like big into supporting candidates, and then I wasn't a registered Republican until 2016.
Wow.
And I kind of thrust my family into a whole world, right? Husband and kids, that they had never been a part of. So I feel you, man, because you do bring everyone on a journey with you, don't you, when you become a public figure. So do you have siblings? I don't want you to get into too many details, sure. But please share a little bit if you can about, what has it been like for your family as you have become more recognized and then, now the chair of the RNC's Youth Advisory Council.
Yeah. So I have a sister. Her name's Ainsley. She's younger. She's about to turn 16. So she'll be getting her driver's license and she's super excited about that.
Happy birthday, Ainsley.
I'll tell her that. I'll for sure tell her. She's all into cheer and all that fun stuff. So my parents travel with her for cheer and they travel with me for speeches. So it's kind of the best of both worlds and we get to have a lot of fun together. So all of them have been so incredibly supportive. But as you know, a lot of attacks come with it. A lot of, whether it's social media messages, calls to my school, showing up at events in public, that type of thing. My family and friends have, gotten the brunt of it, which is so sad. But a lot of it as well, I don't want to, just be all doom and gloom. A lot of it has been really cool. I just last night was on a date at dinner and had somebody walk up to my table and was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry to interrupt y'all, but big fan. Can I get a picture?" Which is that part's cool. Awesome. That's so kind of people, to take the time out of their day. So we appreciate that. My family is definitely still getting used to that because this, as just a whole different world. Kind of being ready to be recognized at any moment. But it's something, and it's not something I necessarily asked for. But it just kind of happens. It comes along with it. And it's interesting at times, for sure.
I think people are really excited to meet you and hear from you. I think you give people a lot of hope, right? Because there's a lot of doom and gloom.
Sure.
And if you look at the news and you are watching kids your age, 18, 19, 20, young people, you're seeing on the college campuses, horribly educated, and they have no idea what they're out there, protesting for, right? The issue is never the issue. The issue is always the revolution. They hate America. They've been taught to hate America. And so people meet you and they're like, oh, look at this nice kid who loves America and loves his parents and, is actually getting involved and knows that, one person can make a difference.
Absolutely.
And it's true. One person can make a difference. So you're bringing people hope. Now you're the chair of the Youth Advisory Council. Brilyn, should we be hopeful about the future of young Americans?
You absolutely should be hopeful. I have probably been asked about 50 times today, why in the world I wrote a book? I'm going into my senior year of high school. Why right now? Why would I do this? Is it really that important? And the answer to all those questions is yes, 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 yes. It's so important right now to get the message out. As you know, what we're seeing and fighting every day is spiritual warfare. This is a lot bigger than just left versus right. This is bigger than good versus evil. This is actual spiritual warfare going on in this country and in this world in a greater perspective. So yes, there's hope, but the lack of hope in Americans is why I actually wrote this book. For 7 years, I've had people walk up to me after speeches and say, whether they're young or old, I do not have hope that I'm going to grow up in an America that's free, or I don't have hope that my children or grandchildren are going to get to grow up in America that's free. So that's why I wrote this book. I mean, the book is for young people that want to get involved in politics, that want to maybe not even a job, but just pay attention to politics, to know what's going on, to help save their country in any small or big way. But it's also for parents. And to parents out there that see this indoctrination that's going on in the classrooms, that want a way to help their children understand, kind of what's going on in the country and what they can do to help fix it. But it's also for grandparents who look at the country right now and view it as unrecognizable, who don't want to leave the world or a country like this behind for their parents and grandchildren to have to fight. All the time. So it's kind of, a three-pronged thing. When I pitched it to the publisher, they were like, wow, do you think we could sell to all three audiences? And I said, absolutely, because all three, are kind of disheartened right now looking at the country, but absolutely, there is hope. I know all you see on TV all the time is doomsday, but this is not doomsday whatsoever.
So what does it mean to be the chair of the Youth Advisory Council, the RNC's Youth Advisory Council? I wasn't even aware there was such a thing. So explain to me, how does this all work?
Sure. So it's brand new. So I founded it in January of 2023. After the 2022 midterms, Republicans kind of underperformed a little bit, and a lot of blame was being thrown around, a lot of fingers were being pointed. And I said, look, I think a major issue going on in the country right now is our lack of engagement with youth voters. And so I reached out to the RNC, had a conversation with their chairwoman and said, ma'am, look, the DNC founded their Youth Advisory Council in 2005. This was 2023. We're almost 20 years behind them at this point. I said, we've got to do something. So you can't expect to win over youth voters if you're not even listening to youth voters, if you don't have an opportunity for us to talk to you and you talk to us. So I pitched this idea at the council, just pitching it to her, not thinking I've had any involvement. And she agreed to it, said that it would be something that, could meet every other week. We could talk to her, she could talk to us. And then I stepped back and moved on with my life thinking that this would be something that would happen. It would be great for the party. A few days later, she called and asked if I would serve as the chairman. And here we are. And I'm super excited about it. It's been about a year and a half now of doing it. We've had really incredible opportunities. I love the Republican Party, but we are the grand old party. And that's not just a catchphrase. It is kind of the standard. And it's really hard to kind of modernize this party. And so, quick examples like the first debate we had in Milwaukee, the primary debate with all those candidates on the stage back when everybody was still in the race, and it was a full stage. The Youth Advisory Council played a major part by flying in college students from all over the country to sit in the first few rows and ask the candidates questions. We also, all 4 debates this primary season were live streamed on Rumble, this YouTube free speech alternative, to make sure that we could actually get to young people, because young people don't watch cable news anymore, Tiffany. I mean, they live in dorms or apartments. They're not going to pay an extra cable bill in Biden's economy. So that was something really cool that we got to do. And later on, I'm from Tuscaloosa, Alabama. The very last debate we hosted here in my hometown. So instead of flying the college students to the candidates, we flew the candidates to the college students. And it was a really unique opportunity for them to kind of get to walk around campus before the debate, answer one-on-one questions, interact with the students throughout the week. So that's the purpose of the council. That's what we get to do. And I'm so excited about it.
Yeah, I think that's really exciting. And I think you're right. You can't expect to win over voters in a different demographic if you're not going to go reach them and talk to them. I saw President Trump was with Detroit. It was in
Yes,
Detroit doing a policy roundtable. I thought that was such a wonderful event. People want to be heard,
absolutely.
and you need to go to people. And I think for a long time, the left has kind of tried to lie to us and say, like, oh, these people are not interested, right, in hearing from you. But that's just not true. But if you're not going to people with your message, then they're never going to hear it, right? They're only going to hear that one side. And so I think what you're talking about doing is so important. So help us to understand a little bit, Brilyn. How can we better engage younger audiences in politics and civic engagement? What strategies have you found that are successful for engaging younger voters?
Sure. There's two simple steps that I share with everybody, and it's start a conversation and be authentic. And the first person I ever told that to was President Trump. It was a few months ago, and he was here in Alabama for a fundraiser. We were backstage together having a good conversation, and he turned to me, he was waving his hands in the air, and he said, "What can we do to get the youth vote, Brilyn? What can we do?" And I said, "Mr. President, reach out to them. Have conversations, sit down with them, reach out through social media. You're the king of social media." And I pretty honestly said to him, "Sir, look, True Social is great. You're getting your message out on True Social, but it can't just be True Social. You got to get back on mainstream social media platforms where my peers are. We're not on True Social. Nobody's seen his post on there. So if you get on mainstream platforms, you don't even have to pay for a TV ad. You put your post out and it's getting on the screens in front of the eyeballs of every one of my peers, and they're seeing that." So he got back on Instagram. He's got great success. Last week he got on TikTok, incredible
I
success through the
saw
roofs.
that.
So my generation's seeing that. The second prong is being authentic, and he's doing that as well. He sat down, did some podcasts with some Gen Z influencers, and he's just being his real honest self. The same person that we get to see behind the scenes, now people are getting to see on social media because of how modern it is today. So I think it worked for him. That's kind of my general advice for everybody, and that's kind of a good case study of how it works.
I think that is great advice that you've given. And I definitely think younger voters are very interested in President Trump.
Absolutely.
I think that they feel that some of the dreams of upward mobility in life have been taken a little bit right now. They're concerned about, will I be able to afford, to get an apartment when I
Yeah.
graduate from college, right? Am I going to be able to get a job to begin with? And they're concerned about those things. And I think President Trump is speaking directly to them, and it is making a difference. Absolutely. So we talked a little bit about balancing school and work. You said you were on a date, so I would imagine we won't embarrass you, but I would imagine you have a girlfriend, and that's nice. I'm sure that there are a lot of ladies that are interested in you. You seem like a very bright young man. But it must be hard because you are traveling a lot, and so you're entering your senior year in high school. Is
Yes,
that
ma'am. That's
right?
correct.
Okay. And so then college. Can we talk about college for a
Sure.
second? I think a lot of kids, a lot of parents are taking a step back now and really reevaluating, what is the role of college? Where should kids go to college? Certainly the glow of some of our Ivy League institutions has worn off a bit, as America has seen some of the things that have happened on their campuses and with their leadership. So what do you think about college? What are kids thinking today?
So I definitely have seen a major uptick in just even friends of mine who are making the choice not to go to college, not to waste 4 years on some random degree or diploma, put themselves into debt when they can go join the workforce right now. Got several friends that are going into a 2-year community college program, and also obviously still have a lot of friends that are doing the 4 years of college if they're planning to go be lawyer, doctor, teacher, and they're loving it, they're having a great time. I have made the choice as of the taping of this podcast to at least go to college. I've not exactly narrowed down where, so I don't have an exclusive for you in that regard, but I will say that that's my plan, and looking forward to that. And I will say I've toured several universities. The cool thing the past few months is I just wrapped up a college speaking tour, and one of my things was every campus I go to, I want to get a quick little tour. So it wouldn't always be, the
That's
official office of
fun.
admissions thing, but like even when we spoke at Liberty, Ryan walked me around and gave me a great little tour on a
Yeah.
little golf cart. So we had a great time and getting to see different places as we're speaking. So I've made that decision, but I fully understand that a lot of people aren't, choosing to do that, and I do not blame them at all. I mean, we're looking, like you said, the shine's kind of worn off in these Ivy League schools when we see, kind of what's really going on there. And so 4 more years of
Sure.
indoctrination, if they want to stay out of that, I do not blame them at all.
So college is in your future. What else is in your future? When you think about, for heaven's sakes, 5 years ago, if you had told me I'd be doing what we're doing now with Moms for Liberty, I would have said you were crazy, right? So things change, obviously. But as you look at the future, and how do you think you'll want to influence politics? Do you think you'll run for office ever? Do you think you'll always be kind of on the outside helping to drive the narrative? What are your thoughts?
So I frequently get the run for office question. I would probably say, as of now, I have no interest. That's just kind of, where that is. I much more enjoy having somewhat of a private life and getting to commentate and, do this. And it's so cool and so much fun. So my dream job would just be some type of, TV commentary and get to do that. I'm not shutting the door on public office, but I'm not one of those people that says that I want to grow up to be, the governor, senator, whatever, just because I'm not doing this for power or authority or for a title. I'm doing this because I want to promote change. And that's long term. That's over the next 70, 80 years of my life, not over the next 4 to 8. So that's kind of my goal. I think we could have more influence that way. I think we could get more done that way. But who knows what the cards might hold, Tiffany? We'll see.
So there are a couple jobs I think everyone should do at some point in their lives. Waitressing is always a good one. Working in a restaurant somehow really gives you a better appreciation for how hard it is to work in a restaurant, right? Serving in public office is interesting. The supervisor of elections had said to me that she felt like everyone should run for office at some point or serve, especially in local politics. So my advice to you would be, getting involved in your local politics in some way is incredibly important.
Absolutely.
And if you're able to serve in that capacity, truly all politics is local. And you really get to see the way that the government works in an interesting way when you're on the inside of it. So that's always my advice. I can understand maybe not running for House or Senate or all of those things, but certainly you can serve in some capacity on a local board if you're able to. And I always encourage everyone to do that. Social media, we'll talk about it quickly. A couple like hot button things to talk to you about. TikTok. TikTok's good, bad. We should worry about it. We shouldn't worry about it.
So
what do you
I
think?
100% think that there are security risks with TikTok, but until it's banned in the United States, I think that my generation's on there. The left is predominantly on there. If all Republicans boycott it because it's a bad app, my generation's just seeing information from the left. So until it's banned, I think it's great for President Trump and other Republicans to be on there.
All right. And I remind parents, you don't have to wait for TikTok for the government to ban TikTok. You can just take it off your kid's phone.
You can do that.
If they're
very
little
quickly.
and you just want to take it off their phone, just take it
Yes.
off. Just say no TikTok in my house. And, then you can be the mean mom and I'm the mean mom. And then, we're just all the mean moms whose kids don't have TikTok. Yes. Yeah, that's right. Nobody's there at that point. So, all right. So phones for kids. What did you get a phone when you were younger? What age do you think? I'm curious.
Yeah. So I grew up in a generation where most of us got phones towards the end of middle school. I guess that was around the time when we started hanging out at friends' houses without our parents. And so that was kind of the need of like that capability. I didn't get social media when I started because I was 11. And when I started politics, I wasn't even allowed on social media apps. So this whole social media thing for me is kind of new. So that's been in the last few years. But definitely don't like this whole thing of I have younger cousins that are getting phones in elementary school. I'm definitely not a fan of that at all.
All right. So now let's talk politics for a second. President Biden was led off stage by his kind friend, Barack Obama, the other day. The White House would like to say it didn't really happen. Mainstream media says, don't believe your lying eyes. But we saw it. Does President Biden make it to does he make it to convention? Does he actually, make it onto the ballot? What do you think?
This is my favorite question, Tiffany. So as of now, I would say yes, he's the candidate. But I think it's very interesting that Biden's team chose June 27th to be the first debate. That gives them well over about a month and a half between the first debate and their nominating convention to say he performs really bad, which is going to happen unless they find some super drugs. Say he performs really bad. President Biden's having some health incident. He's stepping back from public life. That gives them a month and a half to put another nominee up before the convention. They have a really late convention this year, and they, for some reason, chose a really, really early debate. So I don't think that's a coincidence. I think it's a fallback plan. So we'll see what happens on June 27th.
I think you're right. It's interesting to see how badly he'll have to tank in order for them to pull him, but we'll see. Who do you think it will be? What do you think, Brilyn?
So I know who it will not be. It will not be Kamala for sure. But that is a major problem for them. If he were to step away, what do they do with her? Obviously, Gavin Newsom's the one they all talk about. I've heard Michelle Obama over the last few years. Definitely don't think she's getting involved in this race. She will 100% run for president at some point. She'll be a hard candidate to beat, but I think we can do it. I would say in this situation, probably Gavin. I think he's a younger Biden, so they would just switch him and then keep Kamala on the VP side.
Wow, that's really interesting. So you think they'll keep Kamala on the VP side?
I don't think they should, but I think they can't take her out.
No, I understand, but you think that they will keep her in that. I think that's going to be interesting. I mean, I don't know. I think that she maybe moves up and then they bring someone in as VP and it's just someone who's strong and carries a lot. So we'll see what happens. I don't know. That's a good one. Interesting prediction. Well, I'm very excited for you and to see everything that happens with the Youth Advisory Council. Moms for Liberty is doing an event at the Milwaukee Convention. So I hope that you'll be able to swing by and say hello when we do that. I am trying to do an event. We are trying to do an event at the DNC at the Democratic National Convention. Yeah. And so if that happens, I'd love to have you there. And maybe you could help me to interview some Democrats if they're brave enough to come forward on some different issues. And that's really going to be my last question to you, honestly, about the state of where we are in America. A lot of the things that Moms for Liberty gets involved in are not political issues. You know, teaching kids to read in school, unions having an outsized influence over parents, right? Gender affirming care, so-called gender affirming care, this idea of stopping the natural, healthy development of children, not political issues. Shouldn't it be Democrat or Republican? These are human issues, right? Where are kids on some of those things right now when you're talking to them, especially around the gender ideology stuff, Brilyn, because it's so concerning to parents and it's coming in through the schools and parents aren't able to stop that part yet. We're working on it. But how do you think that the younger generation is feeling now that they're actually seeing some of this stuff in action?
Oh, I think we agree that it's all crazy. I think that my generation is kind of waking up to the fact that this is propaganda, this is indoctrination, this has been fed to us all the way down to preschool and up, which is terrifying that the government has done this for so many years. I really think that COVID was a turning point for my generation to realize how bad big government can be and how much control big government can attempt to have on your life. And distrust in big government, it was through the roof after COVID. And I think that's something major that's going to be a lasting effect with the Democrats kind of messed up there. So I think we're all on the same page that it's a rough time.
So Brilyn Hollyhand, one generation away. Why now is the time to restore American freedom. Go out and get the book.
Thank you.
And Brilyn, your parting words today. Tell people where they can find you, to follow you. And then last advice, please, for young people who are passionate about politics and want to make a difference in their communities.
So, you can go online at brylynbook.com and get a signed copy. It's also available in all major retailers. My social media is all at Brilyn Hollyhand. And then as for advice to younger generations, or really anybody out there watching, moms, grandparents, anybody who might necessarily not have hope in the country, but hopefully this interview helped you a little bit with that. I frequently tell my friends and family and anybody that'll listen that I don't put my hope in DC bureaucrats. I put my hope in Jesus Christ alone. And I think when you have that as your life mantra, things are going to start looking up.
Awesome. And run for local office.
Absolutely.
I'll add that. Absolutely. All right, Brilyn. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Go out and get that book, One Generation Away. Give it to your kids. Give it to your parents. Let's get everybody in America reading it, and let's restore American freedom.
Thank you so much, Tiffany.
Thank you, guys. Have a great day. Thanks for watching. Of course. Thank you.